Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to Tony the Technician channel. And today on Tool Talk episode 10, we're going to be going into the Capri soldering iron. This is a butane soldering iron that I've had for maybe over 6 months now. I've actually used it quite a bit doing the stereo install. I installed some all new speakers around the vehicle, the head unit, 2 amplifiers, some subwoofers. I used the soldering iron for all of the wiring for that. And now we're installing a relay for the push button start on the car. So I'm going to show you the butane soldering iron from Capri Tools, and then we're going to be putting it to use on how to solder. Keep in mind, I'm not a professional. I do this, maybe 30 times a year. So not a whole lot, but I do have some experience in it. So I just want to share with you some of my knowledge that I have. And if you guys do a lot of soldering, please feel free to drop some tips down in the comments. For me and others that are possibly thinking about getting into soldering. Maybe you've never done it before. Hopefully this video is helpful, and always check the comments for other tips from people that may have more experience doing this as well. But I really hope you guys enjoy, and if you guys are interested in the Capri Tools soldering iron, I will have the Capri Tools website down below, the Tecton website down below, as well as the tools and tools continued link for those tools that I suggest, and there are a lot of them. So go ahead and check that out, but I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's go ahead and get right into this. Here we are looking at the butane soldering gun from Capri, and it comes in this nice little EVA foam tray. It's got kind of a harder grit style top to kind of protect it. And then you're gonna have an empty bin over here. I just keep some different tips in here. Like when I'm soldering, I'll cut these plastic pieces off and solder over them, and then use heat shrink. Then you'll get your sponge, and then you get a bunch of different attachments. So a bunch of attachments I don't really use. The hot knife and sharp knife, that's I guess for like leather or fabric and things like that. Then you get a needle tip, chisel tip, and a bevel tip. Once again, not really things that I've ever used. You do get a deflector because you can unmount the soldering tip, and you can use this as a hot blower or an open flame torch. So that is nice. You get some lead-free solder. Then you get a magnetic stand that comes out. It's got a magnet on the bottom, and you can mount it wherever you want. And then the soldering iron itself, everything fits really nicely in here. And then you got the push button here on the side. You got, not necessarily straight, but fairly straight, angled, and 90 degrees. So really nice that it's adjustable. I'm not sure exactly why it wouldn't go all the way straight up, but it is what it is. Then you have your lock right here. You have to push this in order to ignite it. And then once you do have it ignited, this bottom switch you can flip over and it locks it down. And then to shut it off, you just flip that switch back. And then you have your heat right here. You have levels 1 through 4, so you can turn it up. And then in the bottom you can see your window for your butane. See it in there. And then you got this protective cover as well, so when it's hot you can set it down or anything like that, and it's kind of got like an open window on it and some vents so it can still cool off. And as you can see, I've used it a few times. I did some wiring in the Camaro. I got the tip kind of tinned, got some solder on there. It's worked very well. So today I'm actually doing a little bit more soldering for a relay that I'm installing for the push button start. So we're going to be doing that, and that's really just kind of a quick look at the Capri soldering iron. And I'm going to set it up over here so you guys can see as I work through soldering the ground portion of the relay. So we have the soldering iron kind of heating up right now, and while that's heating up, I like to get my wiring prepped. So I kind of just splay the wires out. This is the way I like to do it. However you go about it, that's up to you. Don't forget to put your heat shrink on as well. Keep in mind that you can run rosin flux paste, which is it's basically a substance that's going to help prevent oxidation. It's going to promote the bonding while you solder, and then it's also cleaning the metal as well, and it'll continue to protect it afterwards. But most commonly you want to look for a rosin core solder. It's basically got the paste or the rosin flux inside of the solder, which is going to help as you solder and then protect it afterwards as well. It's just easier, but the rosin flux paste isn't necessary, but it does help. But I'll be running the rosin core solder, and make sure that you use electrical solder when doing this, not plumber's solder. There is a difference. And then once you're done, you can coat this in dielectric grease and then use your heat shrink. I have adhesive heat shrink which is going to prevent water from getting in, and it's going to protect it as well. So you can do both if you want, or if you don't have adhesive heat shrink, then you can just do dielectric grease and heat shrink. But mine is adhesive. Don't forget to put this on, especially if the other end of your wire is attached, and then you'll end up having to cut it and then resolder and put this on. But when you do put your heat shrink on, just remember to keep it away from the area where you're soldering, because then you may end up shrinking your heat shrink if it's too close to the wiring up here. So just keep that in mind. But we're just going to go ahead and splay these wires out. And then once we've done that, we'll toss in our little alligator clips. Kind of push them together so they're intermeshed. And then you're basically just going to grab and pinch, pushing both wires into each other, and then twist. And then just make sure that no wires are poking up or anything like that. And then once you've done so, then you can move your soldering iron in. I have it at the 90-degree angle in the stand. And basically we're going to set it in front. I'm going to lower the wiring onto the tip, and that's going to heat it up. That's where the helping hands and the stand for the soldering iron is really handy, so you don't have to hold everything and do this all at once. And then you're going to want to heat whatever you're soldering. You don't want to heat the solder. You don't want to touch the tip of the solder to the soldering iron. You do, when first breaking this in or when first using this, you do want to have a thin coat of solder on the actual soldering iron. And then if you're going to be using the rosin flux paste, you want to place it on the wiring after you get it twisted before soldering it. And then once this wire is nice and hot, then you're just going to run your solder. You got to give it time to heat up some more. Just make sure you're not sticking the solder onto the tip of the soldering iron, because then all you're doing is basically creating a blob and smearing the blob around. You want to heat the wire so then when you touch the solder to the wire, it fuses in through the wiring, but you have to give it time to heat up. I have mine at about 2 to 3 on the fuel gauge right now, or the heat gauge. And it will take a minute for it to heat up, and you got to get it positioned just right. I had to readjust my alligator clamps. I had to move them away. The wiring started to get a little hot over here as far as the outside coating. So I do have one little strand sticking up right here, but that's no big deal. I'll cut it off with some flush cuts. It doesn't take a whole lot of solder either, just a couple dabs to run through on both sides. It's going to be a nice strong connection, and then we're going to give this time to cool down, and then I'm going to give the tip time to cool down. And normally when doing small wires like this with small heat shrink, I'll just use a lighter and just carefully, heat shrink it. I usually use like a torch or a heat gun when dealing with larger heat shrink, but since this does come with this attachment and it can be used as a blower, we're gonna try it out. So we'll see how it goes. It's just gonna take some time for this to cool down. That's why normally, if it wasn't for this video, I would just simply use my lighter or my heat gun to put this heat shrink on. But if you don't have adhesive heat shrink, just keep in mind that you do want to run some dielectric grease, especially if this is going to be wiring on a trailer or an RV or anything that may possibly be more open to the environment, such as rain and stuff like that. This, where it's going to be underneath the hood, it's still going to be really protected. So it's not as necessary, but I'm still going to do it to protect it as much as possible. So we have it set up for the hot blower. You can also use it as a micro torch as well. It's simply just removing this. We unscrewed the tip from this portion here, from the tip right there. And then if you remove this tip here, and you just have this portion here, then it'll be a torch. Having this here will stop the actual flame. So simple enough, you just slide this on here and then it is ready. Then you can take this tip here, slide it on. We'll go ahead and see how it works. So you always want to start in the center and and then work your way to the sides. The nice thing about the deflector is it's going to heat the backside of it as well, so you don't necessarily have to turn the wiring over and over to get everything. So simple as that. And this is it once again with the adhesive, so it's sealed up nicely. Obviously you can tell I didn't get it exactly nice and centered, but that's okay, it's still protected. And then we're also going to be running nylon braided sleeving over this as well, and it'll be done right. And hopefully you guys found this helpful and gave you a little bit of information on the Capri soldering iron, butane soldering iron. Keep in mind this is $100, so it's a little bit more than your standard like Weller soldering gun, but the thing that's nice is this is super light, super compact. It comes with quite a bit of accessories. It's very versatile. I like the magnetic bottom, the stand, the adjustment of it, and there are a lot of others available. I mean, you can get a soldering iron or a soldering gun anywhere between $30 and $200, just depending on how advanced you're really looking at getting into it. So I think for $100 it's a little expensive, but I think it's still really nice for everything that you get, how organized it is, and just how versatile it is. So I think it's a good product. Let me know your guys' thoughts or what you guys run, but this is definitely better than my old Weller soldering gun that weighs about 3 pounds. It's just a lot easier. If I wanted to, I could use this inside the engine bay, but since I have the ability to do it right here on my workbench, that's where I prefer to do it. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment down below of your guys' thoughts. I'll also have this product linked down in the description. The Capri website will be linked there, the Tekton website, and the tools and tools continued link. I will have a lot of other tools that I suggest there for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'll see you guys next time.